Thank you very much. First, I would like to send my congratulations to the Estonian Polar Club from the board of the Norwegian Polar Club for your anniversary. As you can see our logo here, we are a little older than you. We started out in 1933, and we have about 600 members. The club played probably a more important role in the first years than today, because now there are so many bodies that deals with the polar areas in Norway. So I'm gonna tell a very strange story today. You know, in the polar history there has been many strange characters, and we know that most of them are very ambitious, and they are self-confident. Often they are exaggerating their own merits before they start, and they're not always quite truthful about what they are telling. And not all of them will become an Arctic or a polar hero. I thought I had 25 minutes. Sorry about that. Hendrik Hansen, he is one of those strange guys who is forgotten, and maybe it's a good reason for that. At least he was a very special guy. So, I found some interesting things about him, and I'll tell you now. In the newspapers in 1896, we could read that there was a skiing expedition going from Oslo, Norway, all the way through Arctic Siberia to the Bering Strait, over to Alaska and down to America, and he was going over to New York and take the steamer back to Oslo. He was going to use 3 years on this journey. He was 30 years old, and he didn't give any reason or purpose for the expedition. He said it was a secret. He was married, had 1 kid, and expected another one, so maybe he would like just to disappear. I don't know. He had a friend, a young student, who was an expert skier that would go with him, and they were supposed to go on skis, and then they would make a sledge from their skis when they came to Russia and Siberia, and then buy some dogs. And also on the way, they will follow the prisoners' transport to the gulags for some distance. There were fascinating stories about his background in the newspapers. And he was an explorer, and he was a sailor. That's true. He was a sportsman, a skier. He's run the Holmenkollen, which is quite famous in Norway. He was a speed skater. He was a long-distance runner. He has a Norwegian record in 10,000 meters and so on, which is quite exactly true. And he also had studied drawing in Munich. And so some of the stuff he would like to do during the journey was to look at and to map some of the unexplored areas and make maps of that in the river deltas and so on. He has been a mercenary during the civil war in Argentina. We don't know what civil war that was. It's difficult to track. He has participated in all kinds of expeditions in South America and Southeast Asia and Africa. He's met Stanley and all kinds of things. Some of it might be a little bit true, but most of it is not easy to confirm. He has been at sea for 2 years, and he participated in a boat race in America's Cup, which is probably true. He sailed a Viking ship from Norway to the World Exhibition in Chicago. The newspaper said even that he was the captain on board, and it's not true. Maybe he was on the last leg because they had to row the boat, the Viking ship, from New York and up to the lakes before they went to Chicago. And there's one space there where he could have been, so yeah. And he was fluent in 8 languages. Yeah, so that's just some of his background. And he was ridiculed in the newspapers. People thought he was kind of weird, and he even distanced himself from Baron von Münchhausen in many respects. So they didn't believe in the stories, and at least they must have been, way over. And he was extremely self-confident, and he was also a likable guy, and talked and entertained people. So, yeah, anyway, here you can see a picture of him. That's a little later. I'll come back to that later. So, he started out from Oslo, end of January in 1896. He went up to Trondheim. It took 2 weeks, and there was very little snow and rain, so he had to carry the skis on his back and use a horse and also some train. And he stopped in Trondheim, and then his friend left him. He wouldn't go further. He stopped there for a week or so, and he took the train over to the border of Sweden. And when he came to Storliden, he just canceled the whole thing because there was not enough snow. Well, then suddenly the weather changed, so he changed his mind. And apparently he managed to get through Sweden. And he fell down from a cliff and broke his skis, and also injured his foot. But anyway, he got some new skis, and you can see here he didn't come up to the polar circle. And he managed to cross over to Finland at Kvarken, and ended up in Vasa, where you see number 27 there. Yeah, that's actually what I just said. So he spent like 3 months to get to Vasa. But when he came there, he changed his mind, and he met first he planned to stay over summer because it was too late, and then he would learn Russian because that could be useful, and he could do that in 1 month or so. It's no problem. But he met a guy called John Edvard Moe in Vasa, who was a capitalist there, and he was willing to sponsor Hansen to go to the New Siberian Islands and look for signs of Fridtjof Nansen, because he's been away for 3 years, and nobody ever heard from him. And Baron Edvard von Toll, as the Estonian, he had put up some depots for Nansen up there at the New Siberian Islands, and so it would be good to go there and see if Hansen has been at those depots. And Hansen would like to do this and bring news to the Norwegian people about the fate of the Fram exhibition. And then there was another thing, and that was André, the balloon expedition. It was planned for 1896, and people were afraid that if they landed somewhere in Siberia, they would get killed by the local people because there was something strange coming from above. And so they actually made some leaflets like this that they distributed up there, and Hansen was supposed to take this with him and give him to local people, which actually said that if you see something coming from the air with a basket, just help them to get landed, and take good care of them and give them and send them to the governments, because the Tsar has already given them their blessing and so on. So in the end, the weather was not good enough in 1896, so they postponed the expedition. But the year after, of course, André, he left Spitsbergen and was lost in the Arctic Ocean. So he was here. He went to St. Petersburg, and he was going all the way up here to the New Siberian Islands. He would like to go up along the Lena River and then go with some of these mammoth tusk hunters and join them up to the Siberian Islands. So anyway, he went to Russia, and he met Baron von Thal in St. Petersburg, and he got some advice, and he got introductory letters. And he took the railway to Irkutsk to see the polar expert Sibriakov. I don't know if he met him. But again, he was too late. So we had to cancel the plans. He could not go on the rivers. And then also Nansen appeared during the summer of 96, so there was no reason to look for him. So then he joined a scientific expedition to one of the side rivers of Lena, called Adlan River. So what about the André exhibitions? He claimed in the newspapers later that he had been looking for André for 2 years in Siberia on expeditions and hired by the Swedish government. Well, Hansen, he stayed in Siberia for some time, and he got a job for surveying and prospecting based in Tomsk. There was an expedition to Siberia looking for André, a Swedish one, led by a newspaper man called Stadling. They didn't find any traces of him, and they didn't mention anything about Hansen either. But then a year later, there were some new rumors about André. Somebody has seen the basket and 3 dead bodies. And another guy, Fredrik Martin, he got some money to go and look for him. And actually, Hansen was hired to this expedition, which only lasted 2 weeks because it was false and it was a hoax. So this is probably the only 2 weeks he was engaged officially in looking for André. So they were actually looking in this area here, which is quite far from Spitsbergen. So it's not very unlikely that it would be here, actually. So the next thing about Hansen that we hear about is in 1908. Hansen at this time also have some interest in Tbilisi in Georgia. He owns a tin mine there, and he also owns some gold mines in Siberia, according to himself. He hears about this race going from New York all the way through America and Siberia and back to Paris. And he would like to join that. So he goes to Paris and he talks about all these experiences and all these connections. And he was actually accepted to be on a French car. First he was rejected because you were supposed to bring your own car. But Hansen, He couldn't even drive a car. And the route was actually then from New York, crossing America, ship to Alaska, crossing with the Bering Strait, and all the way to Lena and down to Irkutsk and Moscow and so on. He had a lot of ideas how to deal with this. He mentioned you had tailwind most of the time there up in northeastern Siberia, so you could put some skis on the car and you can have a sail, and so it would be very easy to get through there. Yeah. And he had lots of good ideas. And here you can see the start in New York. Hansen is actually this guy here with the uniform, and this is the French car. And there were 6 cars that started from New York. Here is the charming Hansen, this guy here. He likes to wear a captain's uniform. He told that he got it from the Argentinian Navy. Well, probably not. He was very popular among the women along the route, and everybody was gathering around him because he could speak in all kinds of languages. Yeah, so that's him. I won't go into the details about this race, but it was a very eventful race. And Hansen, he got fed up with the French. They argued, so he changed and he got a seat in the American car. And they went up to Alaska by boat from Seattle, and it turned out that it was impossible to navigate the Yukon River, and it was too late. So they changed the plans. They shifted over to Vladivostok, and we're going through Siberia, mostly along the new railway line. And yeah, eventually the 3 cars came back to Paris. And Hansen, he was very useful on this trip because he was strong and he was not afraid to work. This winter, when they were crossing America, it was a really bad winter with lots of snowstorm, and so they spent several months extra time than planned. Okay, so after the race, Hansen, he disappeared, and newspapers told that he was missing. But in 1911, he turned up as a manager of an ice skating rink in St. Petersburg. And here you can see the opening. I tried to translate some of it, but and this is true. His name is there. And then he disappeared again, and in 1919 he died of syphilis and liver disease. So that's the story about Hendrik Hansen, and he's not one of those polar heroes that survived. So I think I have time for a question or two.
Did he ever go back to his wife or not?
He did not go back to Norway at all. And when his mother saw in newspapers in 1908 that he was on this race, she took contact with the foreign ministry and tried to get in contact with his son. He had married a Russian woman in Siberia and had a daughter there also. Yeah. But he never came back to Norway.
So what are the main tools that you recommend what he used to survive?
Yeah, Kadri and Dam from Tallinna Technical University, from Department of Energy Technology. So I have a question. What were the main tools what you recommend how he survived? What was the main tools?
Well, first of all, he was very good to persuade people about his his background, his abilities, and which you come a long way with that, actually, if you can persuade people to believe you. I didn't have time to talk about all the equipment that he brought for this trip to Siberia. He had a revolver. He had killed 5 tigers with that in Asia. He had a special rifle or shotgun that he had constructed himself and get made in America. He had a special lamp he got from Edison to lighten the fire somehow. I don't know how it worked. So he has all kinds of things with him. But it's a long story. I've written a big article about it. And yeah, I'm over time. But 2 years later, you could read in the newspapers that there was another Norwegian who would like to go skiing across the same route. And this was, well, yeah, it was something that he said that if he managed to do the tour without no money at all, he was only going to give lecture and things along the route, he would win a award of $1 million from somebody in America. And he came also to Finland, come to Helsinki. And then people didn't believe his story, so they tried to check the background with these banks where all these things were, and it turned out it was fake, and we haven't heard about him since. Okay, thank you.